Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down each SEC football bowl game from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the Outback Bowl, which features the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Penn State Nittany Lions. This game is going to be played on Saturday, January 1st at noon Eastern Time. It's going to be in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The broadcast is to be on ESPN2. From a betting perspective, this game opened with Penn State as a 4-point favorite. And as of the recording of this video, that's dropped to Penn State by 1. The over-under in this game opened at 45.5 and has moved to 47.5 as of the recording of this video. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, this is Arkansas back in a New Year's Day bowl game. Is exciting time to be a Hogs fan. Are you excited to bet on this one?
I mean, I'm excited to try to find value in any of these games, but I do think it says something about sort of the state of bowl games that we're now getting key players opting out of a New Year's Day game. I think that's something that a lot of people predicted, but it's not what you want to see as a fan. You understand this is not a commentary on the decisions by the individual players, but just in terms of the quality of these games, missing some really, really key guys makes it a little less exciting to me, but hey, value is value. And if you can make money on any of these games, it doesn't matter who's playing. So speaking of that, why don't you tell us about the weather and who may have opted out of this game, and then next news and notes.
Sure. We'll start with the weather in Tampa. Again, we're a couple days out recording this video, so it could change both on the weather and the opt-out and the injury situation. So make sure you're checking in the hours before kickoff to make sure all of the key components are there for your bet. Starting with the weather in Tampa, we've got upper 70s to low 80s forecasted to be the temperatures for game time in this one. Very low chance of rain, but the thing to watch for here is the forecast on the wind. They're showing 10 to 15 miles per hour as of right now. And so if that turns out to be true, that's in the range at which we start getting concerned with it impacting the passing game, the kicking game, which ultimately can impact the total of a game. So watch for that one on Saturday morning. The injuries and opt-outs and COVID situation for the bowl game here. Arkansas has got a couple of key names. Obviously, wide receiver Treylon Burks, who's been a huge playmaker for the Hogs all season, has opted out to go pro, will not play in this game. And then also defensive end Trey Williams is out for this one. On the Penn State side, they also have some key opt-outs. Linebackers Brandon Smith and Ellis Brooks, the team's leading tacklers, have opted out, and as well as safety Jaquan Brisker. And also, just from a coaching standpoint, defensive coordinator Brent Pry, who's been a key piece of that James Franklin coaching staff, is gone. He left to be the head coach at Virginia Tech. On the news and notes, I'm just going to take a minute to set the table for our viewers before I hand you the betting analysis over to Christopher. Starting on the Arkansas side, let's sort of put this season into perspective for the Hogs. They started hoping to just make a bowl game in year 2 of the Sam Pittman era. And by the end of September, we were looking at this team as the number 8 team in the country. They rose very fast, and the fall was almost equally as fast as they lost 3 consecutive games right after they peaked at number 8. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Auburn. And just when we thought we'd lost hope in this team and that we were overinflating how good they were, hope was kind of restored. They won the 4 of their final 5 games to close the season. And the lone loss in that stretch was actually a near miss at Alabama. That was a pretty encouraging result overall, considering that's the number 1 team in the college football playoff rankings at this point. But to put that into perspective, is an 8-4 season, right? The 8 wins that Arkansas secured in this season is one more than they secured in the previous 3 seasons combined. They won 2 in 18, they won 2 in 19, and they won 3 in 20. So when you look at it from that trajectory standpoint, you can't help but say this has been a successful season for the Hogs. And I feel like coming into this bowl game, they're going to be excited to be there. And so that's sort of the mood entering the bowl game for the Hogs. A little bit different on the other sideline, though. Penn State kind of stumbled their way into this New Year's Day bowl game. They're 7-5, and for all the national love and massive contract extensions that former Vanderbilt coach James Franklin gets at Penn State, the Nittany Lions' results on the field this year sure didn't match what an elite coach that they think that they have. They're an extremely talented roster, but you're looking at 5 conference losses this season. They lost at Iowa, home versus Illinois, in 9 overtimes against Brett Bielema in what was just an awful game if you watched it, at Ohio State, against Michigan, and at Michigan State. So some of those teams were pretty good that they lost to, kind of like Arkansas has a list of kind of impressive losses, but still 5, a little bit too many for where James Franklin's at in his tenure at Penn State. However, James Franklin did accomplish what Sam Pittman was unable to, and that's beating Auburn on his home field in the one crossover game where they both played the same opponent. And then last thing I point out, this is interesting to me, and I had to triple check this to make sure it's true. I was reading the Razorbacks pregame notes, and this is their first Florida Bowl game since 2007. Now, part of that is a testament to the subpar performance fans have had to endure over the better part of the last decade. But the Florida Bowl dry spell also included a couple of trips to the Cotton Bowl and a Sugar Bowl, so it's not nearly as bad as it sounds. Still, the Hogs are in their first bowl game since 2016, and they should be fired up to be back in a game of relevance. Christopher, when we try to gauge the temperature of where teams are at, and especially looking at opt-outs on the defensive side of the ball for Penn State, how do we make money betting this game?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the key guy in the injuries and opt-outs, and that's Treylon Burks for Arkansas. And I think outside of the quarterback position, he's probably the single biggest opt-out in college football for entire bowl season. I mean, if you look at it, the entire Arkansas team in some ways revolves around Treylon Burks. I mean, first, he was targeted on 32.2% of their passes. So 1 in 3 times they drop back, they're throwing it to him. Only Wan'Dale Robinson of Kentucky was targeted more often in terms of percentage of his team's passes in the SEC this season. Burks was also second to Jamison Williams in yards per target and third in yards per catch and third in touchdown catches. But you look at Warren Thompson and Tyson Morris, Arkansas's second and third most targeted receivers. Them together only make up 68% of Burks' targets, only 54% of his yards, and only 36% of his touchdowns. That's them combined, number 2 and 3. The other thing you look at is Arkansas runs the ball nearly 2/3 of the time, 64.3% of its snaps. That's a really, really high number outside of a triple option team. And often Burks was the only player making sure that there's some semblance of a threat in the passing game because he can take the ball to the end zone on any given snap. And even with KJ Jefferson, Burks made him look much better than what I think he probably is as a passer. And also really, really prevented teams from committing extra bodies to stop the run when they run almost 2/3 of the time. So with him out, even without the top 2 tacklers for Penn State, the game plan to me becomes much, much simpler. And that's stop the run, stop Jefferson, stop the running backs, and don't even worry too much about the pass. Play man coverage, play, one safety over the top, whatever you got to do, because Arkansas doesn't have that guy that really scares you in the passing game without Burks. He was it. And, speaking of one-sided offenses, Penn State is a shocking 128 in EPA per snap when they're running the football. And Arkansas defense is 26th in that same stat, which is not opponent adjusted. And we know Arkansas has played some tough games in the SEC West this season. Penn State actually lost 5 of 7 and averaged less than 24 points per game in its last 8 games of the regular season. And they only scored 16 against Wisconsin, as part of the first 4. Sean Clifford has thrown for more than 300 in 3 of the last 4 games, 8 touchdowns against 1 interception. But can he single-handedly beat Arkansas? I mean, we're talking about an Arkansas defense that plays that sort of unique 3-2-6 formation a lot of times. They drop more players into coverage than almost any team in college football. That's great against Penn State. You don't have to worry about covering the run. So drop all those guys back into coverage and have plenty of zones with extra guys in them and make it tough for Clifford, which, I think – just because he's thrown for a lot of yards, he's thrown a lot of attempts to get to those yards. And he's a decent quarterback, but not great. So, that's pretty good for the way Arkansas likes to play. The fact that Penn State can't run the ball on a Rutgers or anyone like that. So, Nick, why don't you tell everybody what their gift is for New Year's Eve that we're giving them this year, and who are you betting on in this game?
Yeah, so with bowl season in full swing, our partners over at Action 24/7 Sportsbook have a new deal, special deal for new customers. For a limited time only, you can get your deposit matched 100% up to $800. So if you sign up today and make your first deposit using code SOUTH14, that's SOUTH14, Action will double your money up to $800. Download the app or visit action247.com to get started. Action 24/7 is by Tennesseans for Tennesseans, and you've got action. Christopher, when I settle in to make my action on this game, I'm with you on wishing that Treylon Burks was in this game. It would be better to watch the game, but Arkansas is a much more complete offense with him. That being said, I still feel good about their ability to run the ball without him in the play action game because of the opt-outs for Penn State. So I almost feel like that's a little bit of a wash. And I like Arkansas and their general outlook versus where Penn State's been at towards the end of their regular season. So give me the Hogs +1. And since I'm relying on them to be running the ball so much, game script wise, I think I like the under 47.5. Christopher, when I ask you for your picks, I also want to ask you one other piece of betting advice that some of our viewers might be wondering about. And that's when you have a line like this and you've got Arkansas +1 and you like Arkansas to win. Do you advise taking that point, or do you think there may be a better value out there for them to just bet Arkansas to win outright on the money line?
Yeah, so I really think that depends on your sports book, right? I mean, if you're good at math and you're sharp and you like to shop around for the best number, then, and a lot of times you may be able to find, comparing the, at +1, you can, if you look up sort of tables on the internet in terms of the college football results, how often does a team lose by 1? And then you can look up, also you can convert that into basically implied odds from the sports book. And then you can do the same for the money lines the sports books are offering. And you can kind of find a mathematical edge, if you will, or like one of them will be higher than the other one. And then you can shop around for the right number at all the books. And there's also kind of the thing where, if you can get -105, +1 -105, the percentage time that's going to hit in some cases is actually going to mathematically make more sense for you to bet that than to take the money line. So not a huge deal either way there, but as always, I think the most important thing is just to shop around and find the best line that you can. As we're talking now, I think there's a mix of all the way from +1.5 down to pick 'em. So I would certainly try to find, whether it's a money line or a side, try to find the best number you possibly can on that. I'm with Nick for the Arkansas +1, but really to me, the bet that I want to make on this game is under 47.5. I think this game is going to be incredibly boring. And I even like kind of defensive football, but I don't think it's going to be boring just because the defenses are amazing. I think it's going to be boring because the offenses on both sides probably aren't going to be able to do much at all. So I do like the under 47.5. I think it's going to be one of those games that, it isn't a Big Ten type game because it should be very warm here in Central Florida. But outside of that, may look like a typical November, December Big Ten game. A lot of running the ball, a lot of clock moving, not much action on the scoreboard. But hey, if we can get you to the window at under 47.5, that's going to be action enough for Nick and I, and hopefully for you as well. For Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith with 14, and we'll talk to you for the rest of the bowl games.